What's up, everybody? Welcome into another episode of the OBR Prospect Spotlight here on the OBR Streaming Network. I'm your host, Jacob. You can find me on Twitter at Roachism13, or you can go over to theobr.com and check me out on Roach257 over there. I appreciate everybody that checked out last week's OBR Prospect Spotlight. Crushed every other episode we've done in terms of views, and that was really awesome to see. So I really appreciate everybody. If you're checking us out on YouTube, make sure you hit that subscribe button, give a thumbs up, and hit that bell. We've got Browns content for you 7 days a week right now. So you won't want to miss that. We got a lot going on there. If you've got some Browns questions, draft questions for a mailbag that I'm writing up this weekend, if you're a VIP over on the OBR.com, if you go to the boards tab and the insider discussion board, I have a post there where you can go and comment on some draft questions if you want to participate in that. All right, guys, let's jump straight into it. We're doing edge prospects today. I wrote up on this a little earlier in the week, but I wanted to go a little bit more in depth. So for me, it starts number 3. I want to talk about Ohio State's Jack Sawyer. Checks in 6'5". Some places have him listed at 240 pounds and others at 260. I think he's probably in the middle, somewhere around 250 pounds. Through 6 games this year, he's got 22 quarterback pressures, 2.5 sacks, 17.5 pass rush win rate, and he's got a 78.3 run defense grade. One thing that I really come back to with Jack Sawyer is I think he's one of the more complete edge prospects in this class. This is a class that I think is incredibly deep and has a lot of talent you're going to be able to get throughout the draft. I don't think there's true superstars at the top because I think the guys, and 2 of the guys we're going to talk about here, are guys that have been a little bit inconsistent, although one, we're about to talk about him, is really turning it on. I just don't know that there's a ton of top end, like, oh, you've got to have this edge prospect. But there is a ton of like, oh, I like that pick, and I think Jack Sawyer is one of those guys because I think he's a complete player. I think he's really powerful and physical at the point of attack. I've talked to some Ohio State fans that have said they're not super impressed by Jack Sawyer in the splash plays. And I'll admit that, the big time sacks, he's not got 10, 15 sacks in a season or anything crazy like that. But he does some really nice things, I always like to say with defensive linemen, the guys that don't do things that show up in the stat sheet, that they do the dirty work. I think Sawyer does that because his ability to set the edge in the run game is really impressive. It pops off the tape for me. If you're a running back trying to bounce a run to the outside so you can get in the open field, create these big explosive plays, Jack Sawyer, I think, does a really good job of preventing some of those things, forcing them to bounce back inside or to hesitate and allowing his teammates to kind of clean it up to where, it's not going to pop out off the stat sheet, but I think he's going to make an impact in that way. And I know with edge rushers and defensive ends that people don't love to go after guys that aren't super sexy sack players. So I understand that that's kind of the knock on him. But I just think you mix that with the fact that I think Sawyer has a fantastic motor. Like, this is a guy that will not stop until well after the whistle is blown, until well after the play is over. I think there's some effort sacks, some tackles for loss. He chases some things down from the back end. I'm not sure, if he's ever going to be a 10 sack guy, and that may knock him down your board, may make you want to kind of get him in the 2nd round or 3rd round, which is probably where I think he inevitably finds himself. But I just think that he's a really quality, good baseline, high floor player. He may have a limited ceiling on what he can get to, the potential he can get, but I think the baseline, what you're going to get from him, I think you're always going to get a really good run defender. I think that's what he's going to do. He plays with he lacks like the explosive first step as a pass rusher, but his ability to bull rush and kind of switch from speed to power, because he's got plenty of athleticism and speed, just not a jump off the tape explosive kind of player. But he's good enough to win with speed and win enough with power that I think the baseline, he'll be at least a quality rotational pass rusher with upside as if he develops more room or more pass rush moves, that some counters and works on his hands a little bit. But his ability to bull rush and just set the edge, I think he's going to be a high quality run defender at minimum. And for that, I can take a flyer on him. I think he's got a really high football IQ. I think he diagnosed what happens in front of him very quickly. Which, he's a good athlete, but he's probably average athlete. But I think that helps him compensate for some of those things. Yeah, maybe he's not as explosive or twitchy or have as much bend, but I think he does a really good job to see what's going on in front of him and react to it in a good amount of time. I think he plays with great leverage and pad level, but I just don't think he's got counters as a pass rusher. And so for that reason, he's not a first round, probably not even a second round. He's probably later in the on day two kind of prospect, but he could be a really nice, fun depth piece. You're not going to draft Jack Sawyer to be the guy. Because I just don't think he has that athleticism to be like a number one, but a number three, a number four, somewhere in that range. If you want to get kind of a quality player, I think that's what you can get with Jack Sawyer. Moving on, the second guy I want to talk about is the guy that is red hot, and James Pierce Jr., the edge rusher from Tennessee. This is a guy going into the season that was pretty, not, I wouldn't say unanimous, but consensus boards had him as the number one edge rusher. I saw some boards, and I know PFF was one of them, that actually had James Pierce as a top 5 player in the draft, period, not just at the edge rusher position. And he kind of started off a little bit slow. And that kind of, I think, dropped him down. But what he has done recently has been insane. But so 6'5", 243 pounds for Pierce. He's played in 71 games, 31 quarterback pressures, and 3.5 sacks. He has a 20.8 pass rush win rate this year and an 80.2 run defense grade. He's a guy that you see as he's one of the most explosive players in this class. So his get off the line of scrimmage, and getting into the backfield. And when you watch him, he's just a great, fantastic athlete. You would think, well, maybe some knocks are on him about his run defense. I don't think so. I think he's a really good player all around. He's got a better pass rush plan than Jack Sawyer, but I think Jack Sawyer is probably a little bit better of a run defender overall. But like James Pierce Jr., he is not a terrible run defender. He is a serviceable run defender. PFF likes him a lot at 80.2 run defense grade at this point. One thing that really gets me with him, I talk about the slowness of his start. Last week against Alabama, he had 10 quarterback pressures and a pair of sacks against Jalen Milroe. In the biggest game of the season, as they've gone on and Pierce has gotten his feet under him, he stepped up and showed you, hey, remember when you guys thought maybe I was a top 10, top 5 guy in this entire class? That guy's still here. Just didn't start out the gate very well. I think he had like 0 pressures in like week 2 or week 1, something like that. And it just you kind of forgot about him a little bit, but you shouldn't have. It's like, you should not have done that. I just think he's so incredibly explosive off the line. His first step, sometimes he gets in the backfield before offensive linemen can get their hands up and on him to even slow him down, because that's just where he is. I know at the NFL, you're going to go up against much better athletes. You're going to go against elite, offensive linemen. And so you're not going to be able to beat him just on explosiveness and first step all the time. But he's got that level of explosiveness where he can just surprise you and he can shoot the gap and go inside. And you're like, wait, what the heck just happened? How did he get to my court? That's the kind of athlete he is. I think he's got really nice bend when he runs the arc. One thing that I think Myles Garrett really does that separates him from some of the other guys and puts him up in that very, very top tier is the way he can bend, the way he can practically put his hip on the ground and get so low to where linemen can't get his hands on him. And Pierce does those sorts of things. Maybe not quite to the level that Myles Garrett does it, but he does it. And his ability to duck and bend and twitch and just all the athletic gifts in the world have been given to James Pierce when it comes to that sort of stuff. His ability to change directions, and he has a really nice counter move where he can switch between speed and power. And all of a sudden he goes from, this guy that's this crazy, freaky athlete to, oh shit, he just hit me really good, really quickly. And with more power than you expect from him, just because you think of these twitched up high athlete guys, maybe just that's what they rely on. And Pierce has counters, power counters, and I think good hand unit usage all overall. I think he could use a little bit more size as a run defender and just get a little bit more physical at the point of attack, which you get in the NFL, and you add a little bit of size and power and get some NFL level defensive line coaching. And I think Pierce will be just fine. I think that it would be nice for him to kind of develop a little bit more pass rush moves, just because he does lean. Like I said, he has some counters and he will switch to his power and he will use that when he needs to use it. But maybe a spin, if he could develop a really nice spin move with how freaky of an athlete he is, it would be just insane and very difficult for any offensive lineman to um, deal with. So if he could get a little bit more size and physicality at the point of attack as a run defender, and just a few more a more diverse pass rush move, he has edge one on a team potential. Like his pass rusher upside is incredible with the physical gifts that he can get, and you've seen it. And like I said, he stepped up in this most recent game. Like we have seen him show development, show growth as a player this year. If he continues that into the next level, James Pierce Jr. is going to be an absolute problem in the NFL. Moving on to the final guy for today's prospect spotlight, Abdul Carter, the pass rusher from Penn State. 6'3", 252 pounds, 6 games so far, 20 quarterback pressures, 4 sacks, 17.4 pass rush win rate, and a 72.2 run defense grade. The thing about Abdul Carter that you have to remember is this is his first year as a full-time edge player. He was primarily an off-ball linebacker the last 2 years at Penn State. Was a pretty good off-ball linebacker. I mean, he wasn't going the first round as an off-ball linebacker type of player, but he wasn't bad. He's just another one of those explosive athletes off the line of scrimmage. Penn State continues to find these freaky athletes and put them at edge and pass rusher and just blitz up. Micah Parsons, I know he played a lot more linebacker in college, but Jason Adafe Owe, and who's the one? Chop Robinson, Abdul Carter. They just continue to bring in these really freaky athletes that are explosive pass rusher, and I think that's just really, really fun. I think he plays with his hair on fire, man. Like Abdul Carter plays like he needs to do this real quickly because he's got somewhere to go and something to do. He's like, I gotta wrap this up. I gotta put the quarterback on his back. I gotta go over and do something on the sidelines, whatever it is. Like he just plays with his absolute hair on fire. He's not afraid to get physical with offensive linemen. That's where you really see that linebacker. Like he's used to getting physical, even though he's a 252 pounds and kind of a leaner guy. Like he has no problem getting physical with offensive linemen because he did that for the last 2 years in college. I think he does a really good job shooting gaps. He gets off the line of scrimmage so well, and he gets skinny, and he can slip in between offensive linemen to get in the backfield as a run defender and as a pass rusher. I think it's one of the better things. He's got speed and power. Again, that brings up a lot of stuff when you think about the fact that he was a linebacker. You see this, he's lined up on the line of scrimmage, but the way he will, attack offensive linemen, shoot gaps to try to get around them, switch between speed and power, and some of those things, and kind of just ducking underneath the lineman. That's stuff that you see really crazy athletic linebackers like Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah do to try to avoid blocks because they're such good athletes and they know they can win with that a lot better than trying to take on offensive linemen power to power because that's just not their game. That's what Abdul Carter does, and you can see that. One thing that I think is really funny, and I wrote this down, you can kind of use him as a weapon and drop him in coverage because he's done it at the collegiate level, at a high level. He can drop back, and we've seen that in the NFL where their defensive coordinators are trying to find ways to be more creative and mix things up and put some people in coverage that shouldn't be in coverage that surprise people. And Abdul Carter, having done that, I think really brings it. He's still so incredibly raw. Like his hand usage doesn't really have a ton of counters because he's just before this year he was just when he was rushing the passer was mostly as a blitz player. But he changed directions at the drop of a hat. If he can build, he has a solid rip move and a really nice spin move. I think he does a really good job of ripping and spinning and shedding blocks. If he could, I'm sorry, if he could add a spin move is what I wrote. If he could add a spin move as a counter, I think it would be really, really good. But he's kind of that guy where he has just amazing, tremendous upside. And I think if he got into Cleveland and learned from Myles Garrett, I think he could be an absolute stud opposite him. All right, guys, that is the 3 edge rushers in the draft that I wanted to highlight. Jack Sawyer from Ohio State, James Pierce Jr. from Tennessee, and Abdul Carter from Penn State. Keep it tuned into the OBR. I am releasing updated top 5 quarterbacks in the draft this week. I'm not sure Friday or Saturday. This video is going to drop on Saturday, so by the time you see this, it may already be up. But yeah, So make sure you hit subscribe, like this video. I will see you guys again next time. As always, go Brown.